Welcome back to our live show. Earlier in the show, we talked about the first ever Southern Food Festival, an amateur Southern dish competition. It's coming up this Saturday in Ashland. It's going to feature 5 of the area's favorite restaurants showing off their Southern food specialty. And that will include Wendy Yeoman from Jake's Place, who's here today to showcase what they'll be serving up this Saturday, which is Brunswick stew. Hi, Wendy.
Hey, Cheryl. How are you?
Good to see you. Got all kinds of good stuff going here.
We do have all kinds of good stuff.
Is this an old family recipe for Brunswick stew in your family?
Well, yes and no. Brunswick stew is, everybody has their claim to fame on Brunswick stew. Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, everybody's got their own specialty. It kind of started back in the early 1800s and kind of evolved from there. And for a long time, Brunswick County, Georgia and Brunswick County, Virginia had a battle off as to who was going to claim the fame for the recipe. I'm proud to say the Brunswick County, Georgia gave in to Virginia a few years ago, so we claim the fame.
So what are the basic ingredients of a Brunswick stew? Because I've always heard that the original Brunswick stew had squirrel meat in it.
It did. Actually, back in the early 1800s, one of our House of Delegate members took a band of brothers out to Brunswick County off to the Nottoway River, and that's how they got started. They ended up making a batch of stew out of possum and squirrel and wild game and some stale bread and some onions, and it just kind of evolved from there.
It had to evolve from there. Well, I'm happy to say you've got a good chicken stock going
here.
We
don't have squirrel or possum in our stew anymore, although we do get plenty of requests at Jake's Place. A lot of times when we're serving the stew, everybody wants to know, now, I just want to make sure that there's no squirrel or possum in your stew. No, ma'am, there's no squirrel or possum.
They want to know. So you've got a great stock going here.
Yes,
What's in the stock?
The stock is all kinds of chicken fat and bones and carrots, onions. You let this simmer for about 2 hours. You know, so don't throw away when you're fixing your chicken. If you've roasted a whole chicken, that's what's going to be your basis for your stew.
That's all the flavor.
That's all your flavor, all the bones and so forth. That's all your flavor right there. And so you're going to let that simmer down for a couple of hours, and then we use
a little strainer.
A little strainer. And you take that, and then you're going to strain that right into another bowl.
Okay.
You want to get rid of all this, you know, all the bones
solids
and the fat and all the solids. So then you're going to be left with this wonderful base soup stock.
Okay.
Now, if you don't want to go through all that, you can actually cheat a little bit, and you can actually pick up just a couple of cans of chicken stock from the local grocery store.
That would probably be me.
Yeah, but I mean that's a little bit.
But this makes it homemade and delicious.
That's a little bit of a cheating method, but we always go for the real deal there. And then you start chopping up. You start chopping up your potatoes and your carrots, and then we also
those look like russet potatoes.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the favorite potato to use?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The potatoes actually act as a thickening agent. Again, back in the early 1800s when it all evolved, they used stale bread to kind of thicken up the soup. The potatoes now are what your thickening agent is.
That starch will do that.
And that starch is going to thicken it up. Brunswick stew is basically like a vegetable soup, but you'll hear plenty of people say that unless the paddle sticks in your pot, it's not thick enough.
So that's a big paddle, so you must be using a pretty big pot.
This is our baby paddle. This is the baby paddle. The paddle this is the one that we use for a big pot, like in the kitchen, if we're only going to do like a small batch. But we've got a 75-gallon big black cauldron that sits at the restaurant that we make.
Now, are you going to be cooking on site at the food festival this Saturday?
We are not going to be cooking the Brunswick stew on site just because of the fact that it's a 12-hour process. It takes all day to make.
So
Brunswick
what
stew.
Is the 12 hour? What takes 12 hours?
Once you get all the ingredients into your big pot, it starts to simmer, and that's when it starts to thicken up. And that's you start adding in your pulled chicken. We add pulled pork and brisket into ours, and then your potatoes, your carrots, some fresh corn, some fresh lima beans, and it all thickens up, and this is what you end up with, this wonderful, thick, rich soup that's got all kinds of nutrients and ingredients in it, and it's delicious. We kind of go along with the North Carolina recipe. Georgia's recipe, they usually use chicken, pork, and beef. Virginia is usually just the chicken here in Virginia. That's all they usually use in Virginia, but we kind of err on the North Carolina side and use a lot of pulled pork and chicken and add a little smoky flavor.
So how many gallons of this will you be cooking up then for Saturday?
Oh, we've got 45 gallons that we're going to be taking out to the Southern Food Festival. So we're going to be able to feed a lot of folks. the air samples, we're going to be selling little sample 4-ounce cups for $3 that everybody should be able to come by and try it out. And then we'll have larger soup bowls for everybody to enjoy during the festival.
If we don't have the 12 hours to do it ourselves, you do it for us.
I'll do it for you. And we actually sell it by the quart. And so, you know, we sell plenty of this during the week at the restaurant.
Now, when they approached you and said, do you want to be part of this Southern Food Festival, what was your response?
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
you said yes, obviously,
Absolutely.
but what did you think about a Southern Food Festival?
Because Southern Food Festival is going to be so much fun. We did the barbecue festival at Cotu back in August. So many people, but we're going to be out there with so many great vendors this coming week. And so I'm really looking forward to being out there with you know, the folks that are going to do some catfish and fried chicken, which the Brunswick stew goes with all of those.
Right, and some biscuits.
And some biscuits.
Oh, it's going to be
Absolutely.
delicious.
So Brunswick stew goes with all of that.
Well, Mary, thank you. Wendy, thank you so much. Wendy Yeoman for joining us today from Jake's Place. And check out the Brunswick stew and others great Southern specialties like fried chicken, barbecue, fried catfish, and biscuits at the first ever Southern Food Festival that's coming up on Saturday, March 24th from 1 to 8 at the Center of the Universe Brewing Company in Ashland. Admission absolutely